And we record everything. So we have people right now on the admin side, those are the voices you're hearing, they're talking to everyone who's online right now. This also happens. I think this is what Facebook calls competitors. But we still have some time, so we can wait. All right, guys, we're going to try to get started. I'm going to turn on the mic so everyone online can hear us. This is NACE Star League in Review. I'm Michael Brooks, Executive Director of the National Association of Collegiate Esports. I think I've talked to all of you at one point in time, but the last 2 years probably remotely. Like everyone else, everything was online. Next to me, I have Rob Johnson. Rob, if you want to.
I have not been able to talk with everybody, so I'm very excited to be back. My first NACE conference is 2019 when I represented Nerd Streets. So it's excited to be back in this capacity and to talk about what we've done with NACE Star League, what we are planning in the future, and this partnership. And from this, we're going to give a little bit of how this came together, and you may be interested or not on the business side, but sustainable business practices, making a structure that is going to work for the most amount of people. That was our goal, and we're not finished. Obviously, we've got through our first year, but excited to talk about what we've done, the mistakes that were made, and we did a lot of things right. But with this membership, and certainly talking with everybody over the next couple of days here, if you have questions, whether it's in this room, online, or just pull me aside here, this is really about building the best infrastructure we can for collegiate esports and beyond, and for EDU, which we can get into a little bit from the Playfly esports side. I guess I should explain what I do. So, CEO of Playfly Esports. We're formerly Collegiate Star League, CSL Esports. There's a long journey of how we got to that point, which I'll talk a little bit about. It makes really the story of how NACE Star League came together, I think, a little bit more fun. But wanted to give the context. This is going to be very open and transparent. So if you do have pointed questions, or if there's something about certainly our business that you do like or don't like, I'm here to address it, open and honest, because that's what's really going to help build a sustainable esports, certainly category here, but the industry itself. As we sit here and phase is down 30% on our IPO. There's so many unsustainable business practices. We want to focus on sustainability.
Yeah, so to kind of give us a starting point on this discussion, for those of you who aren't familiar, NACE, then Collegiate Star League, now Playfly Esports, Nerd Street, Mainline, came out with an announcement in July of this last calendar year. And that was the announcement of this thing called NACE Star League. The announcements were pretty clear, but again, just to put everyone on the same page, what we looked at is how can we take the active, large, doing well organizations in the space, bring them together to focus on, to allow each one to focus on different aspects of what collectively we wanted to see as the best and largest collegiate esports league in the world, right? US, Canada, world, doesn't matter. We achieved that. The numbers we'll actually go through later are quite high in terms of student participation, team participation, institutional participation, number of esports we were able to field increased dramatically as well. Able to add more esports from different publishers and organizations that happen as well. So like a lot of wins, but also a lot of pain points doing something that's never been done before, which is how do you take 4 different organizations initially, which that's just grown, and collectively run a singular league. Yes, the league has different divisions and different aspects behind it, but it is still one entity that is being jointly run by multiple groups. How do you make sure the groups don't step on each other's toes? Everyone knows clearly what they're doing and how they're going about it. But yeah, that was the announcement. That was the big announcement back in July. A lot of people had all sorts of opinions. Press on it was generally, wow, this is big. Like that was the feedback. Yeah, this sounds really big, and we'll see. So we'll go over that as well, and I think probably show some numbers just to show some context. I was told I don't have a clicker, so I'm going to use my fingers here. Try to point this out. So this is actually a graphic we released at the end of the school year. So I know you can't tell, so that's why I'm going to read off some of the important bits here. Collectively, in all the divisions of NACE Star League, we had varsity, challenger, and open. Those 3 divisions had 693 institutions participate. We also, of those 693, was 423 varsity programs that competed somewhere in those divisions of NACE Star League. Total scholarship dollars, $163,500 is what NACE Star League distributed to our teams, to our schools, based upon their performances. We had over 13,000 total matches across the academic school year. This is a little difficult to see right here, but I'm pointing at the breakdown of the number of teams for the different esports. We got Call of Duty here, 224 teams. And then even going further on this pie chart, breaking down the number of students as a percentage and where they competed. Some of this was built to showcase to the general public what is happening here, right? Some of it was to showcase to our member institutions what's going on here. Rob, is there anything you'd like to add on this part?
You can see here, so even before we got to July, Collegiate Star League, we had been operating since 2009, unsustainably. And we knew we looked at the space, and we'd always been friends with NACE. We've always looked at the space to see who was helping grow. And the combination of this, one, reduced the overall expenses to run the league, but also brought more people together. And that rings true with this number in the top right number here is, 13,000 matches. To be able to provide the amount of scale and gains, it took a lot of people and a lot of ingenuity just to get the deal together. But then the support from you, the members, in order to help us make it better throughout the year. So we'll get into how are we paying for this? How is this sustainable? What part of this, as I talk about business practices to help the industry grow and mature from the business side here, what goes into that? But this, if most, and listen, from the surveys, it seemed like most people enjoyed their experience. Can we do better? Absolutely, and we will collectively and with you. But this is a good start for a first year of something that's going to be very long term. And for the first time, you can really have freshmen incoming to college and know where they're going to play and kind of what structure for their entire career. And something that we're very proud of that we put together with you and the members to be able to do. So this is a success. It's being able to help grow the space. Is it perfect? No. But that's where we're going to want feedback, and we're going to continue to help make this what we think it can be.
So what I just showed you was talking about numbers of schools, teams, students, where they played, how they played. This same infographic that went out, I just cut it apart differently to try to make it a little bit more visible. And I know for everyone with that, sorry, that's why I'll try to read it out loud. So this is basically our outreach, right? We're running competition. It's a lot of competition. That's great, fantastic, but how are we showcasing this to the world? And this is the results at the end of the competitive year. 2.7 million impressions on Twitter, having 11.6 thousand followers. On TikTok, 5.9 million views, 24,300 followers, 1.2 million likes. Facebook, 360,000 impressions, 249,000 followers. If we look at Twitch, this is where I think it gets really interesting. This is where I'm really proud of the work that came out. 523 hours of production of streaming was done by NACE Starley.
With JJ and Curtis Wigger involved, and I think both of them are passed out in the back from the amount of hours, but to give credit to the staffs between both boards and being able to get that many hours coordinated, obviously schedule changes, working with each of you, the members, to make sure that we could get and showcase as many as possible. This is all going to increase greatly next year. We'll get into how we're going to do that more.
Yeah. 7.85 million minutes watched, 25,000 roughly max viewers, unique views close to a million, 1.36 million live views. But I do want to go back to that. I don't see JJ here. I see Curtis in the back. Curtis, can you wave real quickly? All right, so Curtis and JJ are the two heads of operations, which includes competition. They work very closely with our NACE Competition Council. So if you're wondering rule sets, schedules, calendars, even if there's a decision, intention being made, right? That is all NACE's Competition Council. That is all under the jurisdiction of the Competition Council. JJ and Curtis work very closely with that group to basically execute on what they're building. So if you wanted to learn more about that, I know there's a whole session just on competition, specifically what's coming up this next academic year. Adam Antor is the chair of the Competition Council. If you have specific questions that you want to run about the Competition Council, ask him. He leads that group. I just wanted to point out some of the people who make this possible. And there's dozens of other people who aren't even here. They're spread out all throughout the US who make what we did in NACE Starley possible.
And Ken.
And Canada. Curtis is from Canada, and so is Sean. Hi. Hello. Sorry. And then the last slide here being sponsorships. I think Rob can talk more about that. If you're wondering, one of the reasons why NACE Starley was put together, it was really taking an inward look at your own organization. Really, what are you good at? What are you bad at? For us, commercial sponsorships, advertising, we had no activation there whatsoever. Partly it was because it takes a lot of money to build up broadcasting. You have to invest in it first before you have assets to sell. Secondly, as we knew from an expertise standpoint, we didn't have that in hand, so we'd have to hire externally for that. But we're really good at governance. We're really good at making sure members can decide their own rule sets, enforcing that, making sure we have our constitution and bylaws, looking at membership services to help their programs be better, run better, sharing ideas, best practices, the typical association work that we're familiar with all the way through, 1920 with the NCAA forming. This is where Playfly esports shine. This is what Playfly does. They do it at a much larger scale. And that was a clear example of, okay, we think we're pretty good in this area. They seem to be pretty good in this other area. If we just brought this together, are we now, running at full steam in different areas where we're working to execute individually by ourselves?
So, the business part of it, how, 500 hours, making sure that we're paying employees and contractors and we're paying them on time, basic things that sometimes this industry has skipped, things that we do not with NACE Starley in our businesses here. News Who can do whatever reports is out there, 75% of any type of revenue from esports is coming from advertising. That's where this is at. Every organization you look at, they can try to cut it however they want. They can make fees as high as they want. But you're playing with somebody else's ball. This is the IP of somebody else's game. So this is a very different industry than certain traditional sports. And when you're talking to people on campus, they don't understand it because they just think that Madden just translates probably to people like football and let's play some Madden. We hear it all the time. But knowing that such a large portion of this industry is growing today behind sponsorships, behind media sales, behind getting non-endemic partners in the door to participate and to help all of us grow, we built a business around that. Why would we want to recreate, this is our own from Playfly's perspective, why do we want to recreate 25% and start to carve out where we know there isn't revenue to sustain, to build, to hire, to make sure that we can sustain these numbers that we had last year and surpass them as far as the amount of broadcast hours, the amount of people involved, the amount of teams involved. It takes revenue. And the best way to find that today in our industry is advertising. So we built an organization focused on that. Collegiate Star League, and I'll go through the history of kind of how Playfly got to this point in a moment, which we'll talk about, finish the slide. But that's our focus, and being laser focused on the revenue side, from an operational help side, what we've been able to do for years as Collegiate Star League, and then NACE and what they bring, what this membership brings. That's how we got to this point, and that's how we think we're going to continue to increase and make it better, and bring new partnerships in and bring new ideas in. But my focus and laser focus is revenue in an industry that hasn't really proven that there's much there. Now, fortunately for us, we had a great first year. Did it break even? Probably. We still have the accountants working on this. But there is one, we're not burning cash for the sake of let's do a huge event to get a headline, and there's just no next step. That's not going to happen in this partnership. That's not going to happen in a sustainable future for esports. So for us to make sure that, one, we're able to get the operational part and fund the operations of this for as long as we need to, which hopefully is a trigger, but at least for the next 5 years here, we focus in on the advertisers. Now, let me talk about advertising just in general. This is traditional ad viewership. There is logos on the screen. There are commercial breaks. This is not about selling data or finding new schemy ways to cookie devices. Actually, the cookie's going to die. So having these products, having 18 to 35 in viewership, though, listen, the numbers, they're large for us and what we've been able to do. We expect them to get much larger. And how we actually bring this into a package to a non-endemic sponsor, probably a whole different session. But from a traditional advertising perspective, every Fortune 500 company in America is talking about gaming and esports. All 100% of them don't know what they're doing. So to be able to bring, one, a domestic-based audience, so everybody here is in North America, and to be able to bring and to grow these students and the student athletes in a sustainable way, this is now something that people want to be a part of and help fund. That's where we focus and target. It's not about data. It's nothing nefarious. Advertising has funded almost every media product in the United States history, called North American history at this point. We've got Canadians in the room. And that's where we see the revenue growth. And it's not this small 25% bucket that people will chip away at. People will raise tens of billions of dollars. And you see these Series A, Series B startups raising all over the planet. That's not our business either. We are fully funded. Our parent company, Playfly, we'll get into that in a moment, is allowing us to continue to grow because 18 to 35, let's talk about media for a second, is not watching linear television. It's not in places where they normally are for advertisers. So yes, I focus a lot on the business side of advertising, but why pick on advertising? It's for those reasons. The opportunity to help this league grow financially sustainable can come from this bucket. You just have to be laser focused on it and build that asset. At the same time, using democracy and the competition council and what NACE and the members are so great at to make the competition even better helps us grow, helps the product grow from the revenue side, and it becomes a good partnership. And we've seen the results in 1 year, but I want to be crystal clear and transparent. This needs to be paid for. We're not asking people to work for free. And if anything, we want to get people more jobs and have more schools with sustainable positions to be esports directors or more on campus. All of that is what we're trying to do, but it takes funding. And it's not going to come from some magical place, and people are only going to volunteer their time for so long. So focusing on the revenue part, that's our position here. I'm happy to discuss the nuances of it here or privately, but want to make sure that for esports in the industry to be able to sustain itself, not just in this collegiate category year, it needs to find revenue sources. It's just the time of raising money just to have a big idea, it's over. If you have stock portfolio, I mean, look at it today, it's going great, but otherwise not going well this year. The amount of money that's able to sustain this is also gone. So to be able to build a business, a sustainable business, particularly in esports, needs to come from advertising.
So I just want to rehash some things to make sure we're all on the same page. I've heard, first off, I hate Twitter with a passion.
Same.
But I do read it, and there is still confusion, regardless of how many press releases we put out there. NACE and Playfly Esports are two separate organizations. Same with Nerd Street, same with well, Mainline is separate. We'll talk about that. All separate. The only thing that is between us is we all agree to jointly support the same league, NACE Star League. So who decides what this entity? The answer is quite simple. For NACE, if it's competition, NACE is the decision maker. We don't make decisions in a bubble, but it's our members, our councils, our boards. They are the chief decision makers. They are the final say for everything related to competition. For commercialization, that's Playfly Esports, right? So I mentioned this earlier, divide, conquer, focus where you're good and you're strong, and row together on the same boat. That's the whole premise of NACE Star League, is you find the best in class, you organize, you develop the ways you don't step on each other's toes, and you strategize to make sure everyone is always pushing in the same direction. And that's how in 1 year you have the largest esports league in the world. And we're still learning. So just want to make sure that's clear. Who decides what? That's it. It's competition, the rule sets, organization, what games we're running, it's all NACE. And that's critically important. That's the only way we would have signed on board with this, is to make sure the voice, the institutional voice is clear. It is the decision maker when it comes to what their own students and their teams are doing.
That was a collegiate grower, so appreciate it.
Yeah, that's true. That's not why I said it, but I'll give that. The one thing, so Mainline, I mentioned that. If you guys competed in the fall of last calendar year, you know we were using Mainline as a platform. That did not go well. I think that's, if anyone who competed on that, you understand exactly what I mean. I'll be transparent with you. The platform failed for a lot of different reasons. The primary one wasn't built to scale. So Mainline's platform would function well. I believe the number was 70. Curtis, am I right? Was it 70 was kind of where the thing would fall apart?
Give or take, depending on the format.
Yeah, depending on the format. We had thousands of teams. So you see the clear difference there. We worked through it. It was still a struggle, but we worked through it based on patience of our member institutions and their teams, and throwing a lot of manpower at it. Things that were supposed to be automated on the back end was actually to be done by hand by NACE Star League staff. And we quickly, as soon as we could, exit from that and move to a league spot. I'm happy to say seems to be a much better experience from the survey results that we've gotten. And maybe they were biased, like that was terrible and this is terrible. So now it looks, in my mind, really good. But it was a much better experience from the administrative side. From the surveys, it seems to be a much better experience from the team side and the player side. So that is the one area I want to say where NACE Star League has kind of this partnership change, where Mainline is not a part of that anymore. That they were removed basically because the key part of what they were supposed to be contributing to the same vote, it wasn't working.
And we were able to decide with the membership to move on fairly quickly. And let's give it the other side of the coin. This is the largest league that's ever been put together in college. We broke it. And if you're a founder and you're trying to build software, there's some things that maybe you didn't plan. So we understood we were too big, league spot, and what they provide for us seems to be a much better experience at scale. But going in first semester or first year of what we hope to be and has been the biggest entry into this, we broke some things. And unfortunately, the Mainline platform was one of them. There's other areas of manpower and other things that we found and we fixed. We got better in spring. I think we're even better coming this fall.
So should we open up the questions, or should we talk about things that are coming?
It's the future. Questions.
So what is NACE Star League looking for in the future? I don't want to speak about like competition too much because there's going to be a whole session on that. Curtis in the back, JJ, I'm sure is hiding right now somewhere. I've had him running around all morning. And a few others are going to be talking about that. So exactly what the esports are, when registration starts, length of the season, all those important elements that you as a coach would need and relate to your students and your various teams. So I don't want to step on that because I'm going to steal their thunder is what I would do. And there's a lot of really cool things there. From the NACE Star League as org side of things, I think I'll let you speak because I don't want to. Yeah, I know a lot. I don't want to throw out anything confidential yet.
Not very confidential.
It's not confidential, yeah.
So, looking towards the fall, looking toward next spring, what are the biggest things that we didn't do last year that we need to get to? Getting back to in-person play. It's the best part of all of this, and it's unfortunately the most expensive part of all of this. So, finding ways in order to, and we've both organizations are massively prepared for the return to in-person play and as many events as we can get to. However, we do have to do it in a sustainable way to make sure that the membership is getting the value from the membership, that from the advertising and the media standpoint that we can support the cost. But there's a lot of tailwinds helping with this. One, the United States post-COVID has the most esports infrastructure. If you look at Vindex and Belongs, you look at what Nerd Street does, local hosts, we have dozens of locations across the country, some near your schools. We now have plenty of investments, we need more investment. What we have invested from colleges that are building facilities on campus. The last thing we want to do, experience-wise and cost-wise, is move computers into a room they're not supposed to be. It's tough business. It's not a great experience. And my experience, air conditioning, power, or internet will fail when you one or the other, or all three at the same time if they like to do that. So finding ways in order to get to more sustainable in-person play. I know from a Nerd Street perspective, as a partner, they've offered for anybody who wants to play their league matches for free at local hosts nationally are able to. And we'll reiterate that as we get closer to the season. But one of the biggest challenges is how to fund these events, make sure that we have great experiences for our students, and then also we're not burning money to do it, that we're able to continue to build in a sustainable way. So there's plenty of ways that we're going to do that. It's one of the biggest problems we knew we needed to solve going into this year. Very excited really to get some of these plans out there. Certainly you'll see all of it as we're finally developing here. But I think that's one of the biggest things I'm most excited for is to get back to in-person play events. It's more fun. And to see everybody in this room, one, I've never met most of you first time in 2019, to do this more often. And it makes for a better experience, and it makes it so the administrations across the country can see this in action and see the benefit to esports within, whether it's a student athletic manner or it's in certainly student services, wherever that may live on a campus. We know that the visibility of this only helps grow, only helps with the investment from this group.
Additionally, there are 3 RFPs that we've released, some directly to membership, some directly to convention and visitor bureaus. Purposes around that is to figure out, Rob colored on this, but it's to figure out what campuses can we host events on, right? The chief thing that we don't want to do is to ship computers, right? We'd rather have them there, maybe we have to add some, but we don't want to ship 30, 100 computers across country anywhere. We'd rather be already deployed and set up to run competition. That could be through the CVB side of things or through a campus level. We've had some response. Well, that's the first RFP that's already out there. We've already got responses on. We're looking to get more. Second RFP was broadcasting. We want to do more broadcasting. Expenses on broadcasting this last year with 523 hours was very large, but we don't want to pull back on that. We want to double down. So we're looking at additional ways to bring in more broadcast providers, and a lot of that is going to, in our mind, campuses and their broadcasting teams. Can we contract with them so that they can feed into this pipeline of broadcasting as we go forward? We've got a few responses on that as well, which is great because there's a lot of content that needs to be developed. And the last part was related to our grand finals, right? We want to bring those back in person. Same thing kind of with our regional events. It's figuring out how do we do that, where can we provide the best experience, and how do we make sure that this is a successful business model from the event side of things so that we continue to grow it and do it bigger and better each and every year. So that's, yeah, those are the 3 active things right now that will all impact this year from the non-competition side of things. We have a few more announcements that are coming out as well in terms of services we're providing our members. I can give you guys a heads up on this. So we partnered with Slipstream. For those of you who aren't familiar with the name, it provides basically the music for streaming purposes, right? For YouTube, Twitch, whatever you're using. It's completely free for all NACE members and your students. Then that is coming out right now. Next Thursday is the timeline, so you'll be notified with how to gain access to that. It is meant for broadcasting purposes so that you don't get copyright strikes, right? You'll all have full licenses to their whole library of music. And that's just one example. There are more examples, but I think I'm gonna steal someone's thunder later on of things that we've been working on that'll be released next week or the week after, all for you to take advantage of this next coming academic year. Anything more we should add about some of the future development for NACE Early?
I think we have 30 minutes. We'd like to hear from this group if there's questions to make sure we're maximizing the time that we can have to answer questions specifically about the league, where it came from, where it's going. You know, Michael and I, we talk a lot. And we have a lot of big ambitions for how to make this league bigger, how to continue to grow it. There's JJ just walking the room. We did a waving wave earlier. I just want to make sure we got the correct and you know, anything positive or negative, we're here to answer transparent. So we can start with questions if you want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna close. Feel free to ask questions. I'm gonna close this down because we have our online audience. They're communicating via chat, and I want to see what they're saying. Or at least I need to figure out how to. And we're missing it. Okay, but I have it here, so I might stand here for a second. Slides are not changing. I'm sorry about that. Seeing some of the, for everyone online, this is recorded. We're going to get this out to you guys in case you didn't see the 3 slides. And I apologize for that. Yep, no problem. Again, if you're confused, there's online people. They can hear me and they're responding via text. So if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and we'd love to answer any questions you have. Anything related to NACE Starly that comes to mind. If you have any concerns, please voice them as well. I mean, this is a brand new thing. It's a year old. We've done some things right. Issue with mainline, example, where we didn't do something right. So we want to hear it. Our members direct everything NACE does. Literally everything NACE does. So, you know, your feedback directs where we go as an organization. Your leaders are the deciding people as well. I think people overestimate what a director of an association actually has the authority to do by himself. Is there any questions? If not, we'll just start, you know, talking.
I have 2 questions. So I'm new to this space, right? I've only been doing this for a year, but I come from advertising and media. So one of the things I know that's big with Twitch is concurrent views, and that was a stat that was left out. What was the concurrent views that we saw through the year? Do you know that offhand?
The average offhand, I do not. The max concurrent was 24,000, which was on that screen. We do the concurrent over the amount of hours that are broadcast allows us to get to a point where we could go to a partner and say, this is of value.
Well, that's a Twitch quantifiable stat. So I just wanted to see the Twitch reported concurrent views. See if it's on.
How do I get this to show up over here?
With max concurrent.
Yeah,
So that's max views.
that's max viewers.
Yes, that's max concurrent views. That's
Well, there's still a specific Twitch stat. So if we can just get that information shared,
Sure.
I think that would be really powerful. The other thing is that what is, you know, I know Playfly came from traditional sports, right? And it is how did Playfly esports come in to be a part of NACE? And if it's just doing the primary like budgeting side of stuff or getting the financial revenue, how is that split? what's that relationship look like? And then how can we be rest assured that the competition side of NACE and the interaction side of NACE and all that isn't being influenced by the advertising dollars, et cetera? Because that is a big.
Let's answer your last question first, because that's the most important. We gave up all rights to be able to do anything at Play Fly for competition by design to make sure that it did not influence. So in our agreement, it says that the Competition Council of NACE gets final decisions of competition. From a commercial standpoint, we're out there selling to make sure that we continue to grow. We help with operations, but it is very separated by design to not have that issue. So for instance, we have a great working relationship, but if we weren't here, how can this continue to make sure that it's healthy and that it grows? And that's within the agreement with NACE Starleague today. So if you want to address that first, if there's a follow-up question, both of us are happy to point it out, but that was one of the things we picked on to make sure that the experience for the students didn't suffer due to anything commercial related, because so many of these type of things, not just esports, have failed. We wanted to make sure that we had it right, that it was the right fit for the market at the time, and with that stability from the Playfly side, we're able to commercialize, sell advertising, knowing that it'll be sustainable in this way. If we didn't have that separation in a member-based organization, you would just revolt, and I know you should, and that's exactly why we have it structured.
I'll simplify the answer. It's contractual, and the power is disseminated amongst multiple leadership bodies, which means 30 people, if you count exactly within NACE, that would all have to be influenced in order for something to happen.
So our elected officials or our elected representatives
Contractually are the decision makers. Nothing goes forward without their group signature.
and they voted for this play esports.
Yep.
Okay. Play Fly.
It's like, well, the NACE Starleague, the Playfly esports is a separate order.
So the connection between the two was voted on by NACE membership.
Yeah, our leaders, yeah. All of our elected board of directors, competition council, local enforcement committee. Those are our three existing leadership bodies.
Playfly esports is a for-profit.
We are a for-profit entity, and I'll explain just how this came to be. So World Gaming and Collegiate Starleague were two companies. One started in 2009, one started in 2010, owned by Cineplex, a Canadian movie theater operator. 2020 happened. It was no longer sustainable for the burn of both those companies. At the same time, 2 years ago, Playfly Sports was being moved to disrupt the media landscape in all different angles. So what we did is, from Playfly's perspective, we bought Collegiate Starleague and World Gaming. We made them CSL Esports to focus only on the collegiate vertical for a few different reasons that I can get into, whether you want to talk about here or one-on-one, happy to do. But wanted to focus on Collegiate Starleague, getting it back healthy, being able to grow that vertical, knowing that amateur esports is a very difficult business. Collegiate esports, from a business perspective, has the most potential for growth and is the most underdeveloped because there's just so many, there's just so many things going on in that area. So if we're going to build a big company that is monetizing through advertising and media, and is through demographics, not particularly the product, but just fans of sport or esports. College is where we want to start. Now, the evolution of that is the first year that we ran Collegiate Starleague on our own. We looked at how it was going. We were coordinating with NACE. We were coordinating with other organizations to make sure we could sustainably all grow together. We didn't have competitions at the same time. But over that year, what we could see in our first year is, listen, NACE is doing a great job. We have this now growing company of Playfly Sports around us. Playfly Sports is made up of not just the esports divisions, Home Team Sports, which does about 70% of the advertising for the MLB, the NHL, the NBA regionally. Playfly Sports Properties, which does multimedia rights for both high school and college. We have naming rights businesses, Premier. So we have a giant growing media organization where esports fits in as part of, this is where viewers are going, particularly between 18 and 35. Right. I might be getting too pointed at this, so I'm telling you exactly.
No, this is what.
So from that point, if you have a business that is focused on mostly a linear product, and everybody in this room could probably agree that linear television is not going to last forever, if not much longer, and that OTT, the viewership of Twitch or YouTube or VOD, that still needs to be monetized to grow. That's where we started picking on. So now, CSL Esports, where we doubled down, we focused on college, we grew. We had a 2-year plan to get it built into a larger media organization, to have a sustainable esports company from advertising, knowing all the different factors of what was going on. using centralized legal, HR, other ways to help us grow without having to go and raise money and not focus on product and try to go get a Series A. To be able to do that, we thought was the most sustainable way to build an esports company, period. That next year, and over the summer and all the time, we looked at I've been a huge fan of NACE even before I was a part of CSL and what we did previously, to find a way to continue NACE as a nonprofit, to lead for everything this room does in education, growing students. We're not going to be able to do that as a for-profit. We can commercialize, we can help fund and grow, and that's where this partnership came to be. And it was NACE continue to do the great things we're doing. We will help commercialize and help grow from the media aspects of everything I just talked about within the company of Playfly. And that's where Playfly Esports comes in.
Okay, so the hope is for Playfly Esports, Playfly Sports is the media rights or the licensing of, in the next 5 years.
Licensing and media rights is, I think, so far away that
sure, that's the hope. Right?
I wouldn't even do it. I think in the near future, in the long term, to be able to get non-endemic businesses to help fund not just NACE Starlink, but to help fund the educational aspects and the career development aspects of collegiate esports.
Okay,
I think we can do that.
So
and that's
what's the monetary split then between NACE and Playfly Esports? If you guys go out and get us a big non-endemic brand, say like McDonald's, I've seen them in the esports space recently, or Walmart, whatever. What is the percentage split there? And how do we on the want to see transparency? How do we get to see all that come to us?
How you see it is a micro question. So let me tell you how it works. So we fund the operations of the league first. The money goes in. So any advertising dollars that come in, we both fund the league and operations, pay the people, live events, which is going to be next. And then past that point is a standard media split. So we are able to split everything on top of operations back to NACE. Now, will that take a little while to make that a significant number? Probably, but it's not more than 3 years. This is what we're looking at right now. And then how you see that?
Yeah, that goes to our board, and we have the ability to audit. Vice versa, right?
Sure.
Our numbers, they have the ability to take in a third-party auditor to go down on that.
I just didn't know if there was like a contractual percentage or something that was like for every dollar it's split this way.
After operations, contractual.
Yeah.
After operations. So when
NACE Starlink has its own bucket, income, expenses. That's how we keep everything transparent.
and by the way, like I have been shouting from the rooftops that esports is just the next advertising medium, right? That gets me in trouble with some of my peers because they're all about the competition and the rivalries and that sort of stuff. I'm all about the 1835 demographic, right? So I get it.
You can have both, by the way. They're not.
Yeah,
So
sure.
you can really hype about what we're doing here.
I
And also
agree.
try to fund
100%. Like I want it all, right? Like don't get me wrong, I want the best competition, etc. But I also want everybody to participate. I want my friends to be your friends and our friends to be, right? So I want every school to participate in the best program, right? And so if I've already aligned myself with a program like NACE, then I have to do everything that's in my effort to make sure that it is the best program, just because the people that are looking to start their programming using me as their guide host or whatever, I'm not letting them down, or my students ultimately, right? Because they're the ones that I want the best for them. So that's realistically why, I'm trying to look at what our dues pay for. And then I'm trying to look at like, what's this 5-year plan? What's this 10-year plan? Like, I don't mind how, right? Like 3 years seems pretty close.
I'd also like to make very clear, we do not touch any of the membership dues that come in.
Sure, that's
There's
straight
no
from NACE.
crossover.
I get that. And that's awesome. I just, okay. So I hear again then that the in-person thing this is what you guys have kind of identified as the big profit driver.
No expense driver in person.
To be clear, it's expensive to be able to host these events.
Right, but in 3 years, that's when the profit comes in.
We don't, but from the online perspective, the amount of broadcast hours, that's the primary. Having an event every week, though we'd like to be there, it's just not realistic with the cost of in-person events. This is not just taking a baseball bat and a ball and going out to a field, obviously.
Well, and that's, the hope is all of us, right, that we get bigger and bigger arenas and our schools become more predominant in esports.
Correct.
And then you guys we can just fly people around, and it's the Oklahoma City University versus Open University big match, and we're broadcasting this across Twitch, and we've got millions of viewers.
And that's where I want to be, but I live in the
You get
reality of what we're dealing with this year and how to make this actually sustainable to the next thing.
So is the future with the money-making future for this in these events?
I don't know.
Or the advertising sale?
I would say it's more towards the viewership on Twitch than it would be
Okay.
in-person play. As we look at it this year today, will that be for?
Can we do those combined?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're talking about in-person events. We know that's, from our perspective, we know that's what our members appreciate. So we're gonna figure it out.
And it's the most fun, to be clear.
Yeah.
No,
So, Playfly Esports, they're on the business side. They do have some flexibility. With us, NACE will do, from a business perspective, silly things because it's what our membership wants, right? From the perspective of business, you're like, why would you do that? Well, it doesn't matter. It's what our membership wants. And at the end of the day, it's our board of directors that establishes our budget and decides where all of our dollars go to. So there are cases where in-person events financially might not make sense. We're still going to figure it out and do it because that's what members want.
Wouldn't that be kind of the point of the revenue split and what NACE gets on
Sure.
the revenue split is to give?
That's exactly it. Yeah, it all goes to
to
fun.
lose money. I mean, that's kind of what we're looking for.
Yeah. But that's you just described exactly
Right.
what we did. Yeah.
Okay, because that was my question, was like, hey, like, when there's a revenue split, what is, what does NACE do?
Go vote on it. Yeah, our board decides, the people you vote for decide where it goes. Our board of directors, as in the association, has complete control and authority over our financials. They decide literally where every cent gets spent, where it gets directed. That is one of their two primary responsibilities as elected bodies, managing our financials.
I don't want to cut you off if you had
No,
more questions with that. I don't know if you want to talk on the side about more the demographics and how it's being sold in fact, we're happy to do this.
So you guys mentioned that Twitch viewership is going to lose its revenue. I also mentioned wanting to grow that significantly. So what sort of is like the plan to do that in the future? Are you guys looking for like more content, more diverse content? Like what sort of is the content strategy to get those numbers up?
So, and this is something where Home Trainer leads our marketing efforts in coordination with NACE, and they certainly, we want more content. We want to get to, and linear shows I know we're not going to put gaming on air, but the stories behind this work really well at regional sports networks. I've done it before with FTW in Philadelphia, with NBC. We want to get all the way to that point on content. So it's, yes, Twitch to start, more hours equals more viewers, almost in correlation. That's the starting point. Where we want to end up is how big from a content side, we're media company on this side, how big we can make it, how we can showcase the students, how we can tell the stories behind every person in this room is really interesting if you like video games or not. And that really helps grow. And so we see that. But the content strategy from the media side here is we're going to continue to invest as revenues start to grow. We'll continue to invest that back for more shows, more content, more things that are shoulder to the actual competition themselves, because that will bring in more diverse viewership, will bring in bigger numbers overall. And it's something that from a media perspective, we can sell and then put back into the bucket for NACE Starlink and then continue.
Distribution is also key, right? You want to extend the net, which means don't put all your baskets into Twitch. What are you doing through traditional media? Don't forget that. That's still the largest pipeline right now. Don't forget about all the other social media channels, right? Use YouTube, all that. So it's extended.
Like, I would love for you guys to be able to help with content for all of our Twitch channels, etc. So we have a package that we throw out that talks about all the other stuff, the graphic works for the next match between us and whatever.
Yeah,
I promise you we're working on a plan.
that's one of the announcements. You're gonna like that. Yeah, I'm trying not to steal thunder from like things that are announced at this convention. There's a session called Media Partners. I encourage you to go there, and I think you'll be.
We're trying to chip away the low-hanging fruit first.
Is there any more? Oh, sorry.
So you've talked about the developments of the competition and what's coming down the line, with like the slipstream integration. Is there any, for the smaller schools that are up and coming and building their programs, has NACE considered it all building almost like a knowledge base or a wiki of like an educational aspect?
Yes.
How to use OBS and start building that content, and maybe reaching out or partnering with institutions that already offer the academic side, so that programs can go in and learn an OBS class or take that, or learn about broadcasting, or, learn about the competition as mentioned, kind of looking at. I see that a value as being a paid member. I would pay $3,500, a year, if that meant that my staff could have access, and my students would have access to take these online classes or access their knowledge base. Like, you already have the overlays, for some stuff, but it's an overlay. If you don't know how to use it, what good is it for that student or for myself if I'm trying to do this at home in my basement, right? But to be able to almost inject or offer a knowledge base of the how-tos, or how to start up, or how to.
And I hear you. We have some of that. I'll be the first to admit it's not organized in a way that it's super useful. And it's static too. It's not reactive. It's not someone live walking through the stuff. It's the blueprints guys, but kind of chaotic and how it's organized. That's on us. We're a small team. So how big is NACE? NACE is 5 people, and this is the biggest it's ever been. So it's some things take on a back burner, some things aren't deployed the way they would like to. That is on the list. That's exactly where we want to go. There's a session here at this convention. It's called a strategic plan review. So this is the first time NACE has gone through with an external group to lead us through this, this being the board and all membership, through our strategic plan process to review what we've done, and more importantly, where members want us to go in the future. Philosophically, the argument is NACE a tournament operator now? Is that where NACE and its members want the organization to focus, or do we want to be on the professional development side? Can we do both? Should we just be a revenue generator trying to put money into the hands of our member institutions? That was the survey that everyone took back in, I believe that was late January. Those questions were directing before, where does our membership want NACE as an association to focus and make its primary goal on behalf of its members? And we'll share more there, and you'll see the findings and all that. And it's somewhat interesting. There is a philosophical divide on what the primary value of an organization like NACE is. But that is absolutely where we started as an association, was less on the competition side, very less on the competition side, much more on how do we do this. And we kind of got away from that, especially this last year. There's an intent to come back to that.
You don't really have to, I don't want you to reinvent the wheel, especially with smaller staff. That's not productive. But if you tie it into whether it's a Shenandoah or it's a Ferris State or it's a North.
Yeah, and we work with Edge right now, if you're familiar with that group. That's a group that Joey Rizak leads. He wears multiple hats at Shenandoah. But the idea is to bring on partnerships like that to backfill in areas that we don't have readily deployable resources. So we can artificially kind of grow together. But we do want to create a knowledge library as well. And that's something we have. It's actually shared with any school that reaches out to us, but it's shared honestly through Google Drive link. And that's where I say, like, it can be presented better. It's not as well organized as everybody. Any other questions? Really anything? Otherwise, we're gonna probably let you guys go.
Yeah, so a quick question. So we talked a lot about like sustainability from the financial perspective. I have a question about sustainability of the product and the league itself. How does NACE anticipate navigating the threat of the developers that own the IP, putting additional regulations and restrictions, which at the end of the day can hurt the product, which then in turn can hurt the revenue sustainability with some of these sponsors that inevitably come on board, right?
So the question for those of you that didn't hear was, how does NACE navigate publishers? And publishers obviously control their IP, control the game. Well, I'll be honest, right? It is perhaps the most strategically important thing for any operator within esports to pay attention to, because today there are groups that run esports competition in the collegiate space or unlicensed. who are running it under the radar. I don't need to name and shame them, but it's the scariest thing ever because you can be put out of business instantly. Like it happens. It's happened multiple times already. NACE, Playfly Esports, we have the most number of licenses in the space. I don't think there's any group that comes close. We do it right. And if there's anything that can be said about doing it that way that's painful, is I'll give Valorant as an example. We went through with Riot on Valorant last year, and we had restrictions placed on us. But when we looked at the competitive landscape, we saw people doing it basically however they wanted to. And that's the trouble, right? If you want to be a good actor in space, you go through the right processes. You're given certain lanes that you have to operate in. And if that's not enforced across the space, it puts us almost at a competitive disadvantage because we see groups running it the way we would like to, except for Rise Close, we can't, nobody can do that. But we see it, of course. So it's a very fine line to walk. But if you cross that line and just start doing things the way you want to, hope you don't get caught, you run the risk of not being able to ever touch that esport ever again. And that decision can come at any time from a publisher. It is incredibly dangerous to do, and we don't do that.
We view it from the perspective, listen, we're playing with somebody else's ball. We need to be stewards of that IP and above board to build trust. Listen, I mean, Call of Duty makes $1 billion. It's Avengers level money every year. Even when Vanguard sucks, it still makes $1 billion. To have the trust of the publishers to build, when we talk about sustainable business practices on top of the media practices that we do, to be transparent with the publishers, for them to know how the governing body within the actual org here in NACE works. That transparency and building that trust is how we've gotten these licenses. And exactly why we won't do anything to violate that trust. But that takes time to build. And this being a new entity from two orgs that have been trusted in the past, we'll need to continue to do that and continue to be above board in the practices and continue to be very transparent with the publishers and what they're doing. Now, yes, anyone can say, we're going to do this. The thing is, we in this room and NACE membership is probably in a better position to do it today than a publisher would be on their own, through the expense-wise or any other barrier of entry from a publisher who's really good at making games, but historically hasn't shown they're good at live experiences or these online experiences. So we do have a little bit of advantage there that we're thriving at this point, particularly with the league, in order to make sure not only the trust, but the operations behind it are something they want to partner with, not want to hold it. But again, it's their IP. So us being and bringing this above board, having a member base that is large and vocal, and having the ability to bring in as many players as possible with a great experience, usually good things are going to happen when you produce good things. So is it 100% guaranteed? No, but our relationships, we spend a lot of time on separately, collectively. It's one of the biggest things in order to have an esports business that's actually going to work. So we take a lot of time to care about it.
Here, I'll help it. JJ, Curtis, you're back there.
Curtis is one now, I'm here.
How many times do you talk to publishers a week?
4, maybe.
Yeah. We are constantly talking. We have standing weekly meetings with some publishers. We are very, very close, closer than I think any other group out there. That helps us know when things are coming down the pipeline, sooner than I think literally anyone else. Our competition councils inform, they meet weekly, every Tuesday. They are informed every Tuesday of everything that's happening. We are very fast, very nimble, and I think I can honestly say we are one of the most trusted groups. That is why, for example, Epic with Blizzard, right? We're able to do things that other groups are restricted from doing, especially on the broadcast side, because we've proven over the last 5 years that we're separately and now together that we're good actors. We respect the agreements that we have and follow them to the letter.
And even from the commercial side, if Coca-Cola was doing the Overwatch League, which they were for a second, and we sold Pepsi ads throughout everything we were doing Overwatch-wise, they wouldn't like that. So we make sure we're in coordination from the even advertising media perspective to make sure that even the advertising is within bounds of what they want. It's a tough business, but yeah.
The last thing I'd ever hope to see or ever want to see is we do something as an association and it looks bad upon our members. That is not a position where everyone clerks will say.
you guys push back against them a little bit? And
Yes.
say,
Oh, yeah.
"Hey, we're all these schools, we're this biggest deal, why are you trying to make your own thing with nobody doing it?" Because we're doing it.
And that's why we have some of the relationships we do, is because the value we provide that's already inherent within NACE, NACE Starly. It's easier for them to adopt what already exists, and as opposed to trying to create their own thing.
Right, and I just say from the kids that I recruited, they don't know anything about NACE, right? But they know about Activision Blizzard Collegiate, you know, they know about CLOL, all that sort of stuff. They've seen that, or even I was at DreamHack in Dallas, and, you know, we saw the Collegiate Rocket League there. Kids know that, they don't know NACE. And I think his question was a little bit more like, how are we actively fighting against the potential that there is no more NACE? Because every publisher is just producing their own collegiate esports program.
So I can go into this. This will make sense. Sorry. We are in bids right now. So the groups you're talking about, mainly EQs, who's actually running that on the back end. So CRL, for example, we're bidding on a few of those as well. So we got a friendly relationship with EQs, like the guys over there. They know us very well. But depending on the esport, we actually are competing on bids.
Okay,
And that's been a recent process.
Okay, that's exciting.
All right, I don't see any other hands up, and we are overtime, so I apologize for that.
But any further questions, transparency, business practices, reach out to me, LinkedIn, Twitter, find me in the hallway. Happy to talk at length about anything you have a question about. But excited to be a part of this. Thank you.